Welcome to Course 18 of the MaxLife Commercial Academy, Land and Development Process. I'm Ryan Solberg, real estate broker and founder of MaxLife Commercial here in Central Florida. This is one of my favorite courses to teach because ground up commercial development is our specialty. We take raw dirt, vacant parcels with nothing on them, and we walk investors and developers all the way through to ribbon cutting. If you've ever looked at a piece of land and wondered how it becomes a shopping center, a medical office, or a drive-through restaurant, this course is going to answer every one of those questions. Let's get into it. The commercial development process has four major phases, and understanding how they connect is what separates developers who succeed from those who get stuck halfway through a project. Phase one is pre-development. This is everything that happens before you break ground. Finding the right site, analyzing whether the numbers work, completing your due diligence, and fighting through the entitlement process to get local government approval. Pre-development can take 6 months to 2 years depending on the jurisdiction, and it is the phase that kills most deals. You need to know when to push forward and when to walk away. Phase 2 is design and permitting. Once you have your entitlements, you hire civil engineers and architects to produce construction documents. The civil engineer is laying out your site, drainage, utilities, parking, access. The architect is designing your building. Those plans go to the local building department and you are waiting on permit approval before construction can begin. Phase 3 is construction. This is the most capital intensive phase. You are managing your general contractor, tracking the construction schedule, submitting draw requests to your lender, and coordinating inspections. The goal here is on time and on budget, which is easier said than done. Phase 4 is stabilization and the exit. Once you have a certificate of occupancy, you begin lease up. Stabilization typically means hitting 90 to 95% occupancy with signed leases. At that point, your asset has a proven NOI and you can sell it, refinance into permanent financing, or hold it for cash flow. We will cover all four phases in depth throughout this course. Site selection is the most consequential decision in the entire development process. The old saying is true: you cannot fix a bad location. But in commercial development, the analysis goes much deeper than just location. You are underwriting the site itself, and there are 8 questions you need to answer before you commit to a purchase contract. First, zoning compatibility. If the land is not already zoned for your intended use, can it realistically be rezoned? We will cover entitlements in the next lesson, but know that rezoning is never guaranteed. The political risk is real. Second, size and configuration. A site might look large enough on a map, but once you account for setbacks, parking ratios, buffer requirements, and stormwater ponds, your buildable area can shrink dramatically. We always do a conceptual site layout early before going hard on due diligence. Third, utilities. Sewer, water, electric, and telecom all need to be at or near the property line. Extending utilities across a significant distance adds cost and time that can kill your pro forma. Fourth, traffic and demographics. Your end user, whether that's a retailer, a medical tenant, or an industrial operator, cares deeply about access and rooftop counts. Make sure the trade area supports the use. 5th through 8 are the risk items: flood zones, wetlands, contamination, and the final math. Even a perfect site fails the feasibility test if land plus construction costs exceed what the market will pay for the finished product. Get comfortable running pro formas early and often. Entitlements are the legal permissions that allow you to develop a piece of land for a specific use, and navigating the entitlement process means working with a cast of players, some of whom you hire, some of whom you have to persuade. Your land use attorney is arguably your most important hire in pre-development. They know the local planning code, they know the staff, and they know how to present your project in a way that gets approved. Do not try to navigate a rezoning without one. Your civil engineer supports the entitlement process by producing preliminary site plans and traffic studies. Planning staff will not take your application seriously without a credible site layout showing the project actually fits on the property. The Planning and Zoning Board is where most entitlement decisions start. They review your application, hold a public hearing, and make a recommendation. But for rezonings, the final vote goes to elected officials, county commissioners, or city council. This is where it gets political. Elected officials respond to constituents. If neighboring residents show up in force against your project, it can fail, even if the planning staff recommended approval. This is why the pre-application meeting, a conversation with planning staff before you formally submit, is so valuable. You learn the objections early, you address them in your application, and you come to the public hearing with a much cleaner path to approval. Entitlements take time. A straightforward special exception might take 60 days. A full rezoning in a contested area can take 18 months or more. Build that timeline into your pro forma and your financing structure. Once your entitlements are in place, you move into the design phase. And the centerpiece of that phase is the site plan. A lot of developers think of the site plan as just a drawing, but it is actually a legal document. When a local government approves your site plan, they are approving a specific layout, your building footprint in a specific location, your parking count, your access points, your drainage system. If you deviate from that approved plan during construction, you need a formal amendment, which takes time and costs money. The site plan process has two stages. The conceptual site plan is used during entitlements. It is professional enough to demonstrate feasibility, but it is not engineered. You are showing the planning board that the use fits on the property and meets the general requirements of the code. The engineered site plan is the full construction document. Your civil engineer is calculating stormwater runoff and designing your retention ponds, laying out underground utilities, setting grades and elevations across the entire site, and designing your parking lot to meet ADA standards and local code. This document, combined with your architectural drawings, is what the building department reviews before issuing permits. At MaxLife Commercial, we always recommend clients engage their civil engineer early, during due diligence if possible. A preliminary engineering analysis can surface cost surprises, like a site that requires significantly more fill material than expected, or a drainage solution that eats into your buildable area before you are committed to the land. The earlier you find these issues, the cheaper they are to solve. When it comes to actually building your project, you have choices about how to structure your relationship with the construction team. And that choice has real consequences for your timeline, your risk, and your lender's comfort level. The traditional approach is design, bid, build. You complete your full design documents, then you solicit bids from multiple general contractors, and you award the contract to the best combination of price and qualifications. The advantage is price competition. You know your construction costs before you start. The disadvantage is time. You cannot start construction until design is fully complete, and that sequential process can add months to your schedule. The preferred approach in commercial development today is design build, or a guaranteed maximum price contract, GMP for short. With a GMP contract, your contractor gives you a firm maximum price for the project. If costs run over that number, the contractor absorbs them. If costs come in under, you typically share the savings. Construction lenders love GMP contracts because they reduce the risk of cost overruns blowing up the project budget. Design build goes one step further. Your general contractor also manages the design process, which allows design and construction to overlap. You might be driving piles while the architect is still finishing interior drawings. That schedule compression can save 3 to 6 months on a typical commercial project, which translates directly to reduced carrying costs and faster lease up. Regardless of delivery method, your construction loan will require you to submit draw requests as work is completed. Each draw is verified by an independent inspector before the lender releases funds. Managing that draw process, staying current, avoiding lien issues, is a critical part of keeping your project on track. The development pro forma is the financial model that tells you whether a project is worth building. Every decision you make in pre-development, what to pay for the land, what to build, what rents to underwrite, flows through this model. If the numbers do not work on paper, they will not work in the field. Total development cost is your starting point. This is land acquisition plus hard costs, the actual construction plus soft costs, which include architecture, engineering, environmental studies, permits, legal fees, and developer overhead. Do not forget financing costs. Your construction loan interest is a real cost that accrues every month the project is under construction, and many developers include a developer fee in TDC as compensation for their time and risk. A typical developer fee runs 5 to 10% of total project cost. Stabilized NOI is your target income once the project is fully leased. You start with your projected rents, grounded in comparable lease comps in the market, apply a vacancy factor, and subtract operating expenses. For NNN leases, the tenant pays most operating expenses, which simplifies this calculation significantly. As stabilized value is simply the stabilized NOI divided by your target exit cap rate. If the market is trading stabilized retail at a 6 cap and your project produces $300,000 in stabilized NOI, your as stabilized value is $5 million. Your profit is as stabilized value minus total development cost. The metric most developers track is yield on cost. Stabilized NOI divided by total development cost. If market cap rates are 6%, you want your yield on cost to be at least 7.5 to 8% to justify the development risk. That spread is your reward for building it rather than buying it. I encourage every client to build their pro forma in a spreadsheet and stress test it. What happens if rents come in 10% lower than projected? What if construction costs run 5% over? A project that only works under perfect conditions is too fragile to execute. You have broken ground. You have navigated construction. You have your certificate of occupancy. And now comes the phase that actually delivers your return, lease up and stabilization. The best developers start pre-leasing during construction. Getting a tenant to sign a lease before the building is complete is harder, but it dramatically reduces your risk. A signed lease, even an LOI, is a signal to your lender, to your equity partners, and to any future buyer that the market is validating the project. At MaxLife Commercial, we engage our leasing team the moment we have an approved site plan. We are not waiting for CO to start the leasing conversation. Stabilization is the moment when your project transitions from a development asset to an income-producing asset. Most lenders and buyers define stabilization as 90 to 95% occupancy with executed leases. At that point, your NOI is real and predictable, and the market can apply a cap rate to produce a reliable valuation. The developer exit has two main options. You can sell, and if you have done your job, a stabilized, well-leased asset will trade at the lowest cap rate in the market, maximizing your sale price. Or you can refinance into permanent financing, pull out most or all of your equity, and hold the asset for ongoing cash flow. Timing matters enormously. Selling into a low-rate environment when cap rates are compressed maximizes value. Holding through a rising rate cycle while your asset is still in lease-up can be very painful. This is the full development cycle. From raw dirt to a stabilized, valuable commercial asset. It is complex, it is risky, and it is one of the most rewarding paths in commercial real estate when you execute it correctly. That is why we built our practice around it at MaxLife Commercial. That is a wrap on Course 18, Land and Development Process. You now have the framework to evaluate raw land for commercial development, navigate the entitlement process, understand what happens during design and construction, build a development pro forma, and plan your exit as a developer. Four things I want you to walk away with. First, development is a four-phase process. Pre-development, design and permitting, construction, and stabilization, and each phase has its own risks and its own team. Second, entitlements are never guaranteed. Build political risk into your timeline and your budget. Third, your pro forma needs to show a yield on cost that meaningfully exceeds market cap rates. If the spread is not there, the risk is not worth taking. And fourth, start pre-leasing before you have a building. Vacant space after certificate of occupancy is the most expensive position you can be in as a developer. If you have questions about a specific land opportunity or want to talk through a development feasibility, reach out to us directly. I'm Ryan Solberg, real estate broker with Max Life Realty LLC. You can reach me at 321 586 2121 or visit us online at maxlifedevelopment.com/academy. Our next course is syndication and raising capital because great deals need great capital partners. See you there.